Hey there. How y'all doing today? All right, chat, hit me up and let's make sure this is working. Again, this is only my second time. I am what I like to think is a newbie. I don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of do. And I think in a matter of a few streams, I'll feel comfortable, but I'm not there yet. All right, what's up, Adam? So you heard music, right? That was actually something my wife made. She's a music producer and way more talented than I am, flat out. All right, cool. Hey, what's up, Amit? Dang, we got some SBC people in the house already. We'll give it a couple minutes, not a minute or two, just a little bit of time for people to arrive. Right. So, also, we hearing right and left ears. You hear it in two ears. We had an issue last week. I only had it mono. I understand what wasn't right there, so I'm gonna just pop that in here. Are we in two ears? Yes. No. Let me know. Okay. Cool. And then let's see here. Let me grab this link. Getting set up. There we are. Okay. This is the. Get that real quick. 1 second. Copy link. Make sure it's not editable. Okay. Here's the link. And then we're almost ready to go. Okay. So we're going to always work out of a Google Sheet, at least for now. So if you want to pop in there, there's nothing in there. I like to start with a blank page. And we kind of build out our conversation from there. All right. Let's see. We've got about, it says 38 users. Pretty cool. Or viewers. I want to appreciate those who came last time. So awesome. Really, really happy with the turnout. And those who watched and who are interested. I don't know how long we're going to go. We went 2 hours last time. At some point, I need to go watch the Dodgers game. So it may not be that long. We'll see. Maybe an hour. I don't know. We'll talk. We're going to talk about Luol Deng mostly today. So there was a tweet from Shams, and this is what I woke up to this morning. I was I was planning on sleeping in because I hadn't slept much this weekend, and he had talked about how the Lakers were applying to get out of Luol Deng's cap hold. So let's pull that up on Twitter real quick to give Shams the credit he deserves, because this is not my doing here. Let's see. Here it is. All right, we're going to try this. Am I hitting the right button? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so this is our starting point. From Shams Charania of The Athletic. Sources, the Lakers have requested a career-ending... I guess I should look over here. A career-ending injury application to have Luol Deng's salary removed from team books. Deng has agreed to a buyout with Lakers in 2018, retired last October, and is owed salary through 2022. All right, so let's just start at the beginning. Okay, and so this is in the Google Sheet. Okay, I'm going to move, let's see. I'm going to move this over here, the chat, so I can see it in theory. Don't know if I made it. There it goes. Okay, bear with me. Okay, and then let's see here. Okay, so the starting point. I'm going to jump to last week, or let's jump to home. And we're going to start with the starting point basically for every video, which is this. Okay, you need to start where you can see the numbers, right? The numbers that the players are being paid. That's what I publish on Basketball Insiders. Please use that as a resource. There are other great sites. There are other sites that are not maybe great that might copy from me. Those who do a legitimate job, and there are definitely people I have respect for them, and a lot of them I collaborate with. And for those who just copy, hey, it is what it is. Larry's FAQ. That is your homework if you really want to learn this stuff. To be honest, Larry maps all this stuff out as far as how it works in the CBA. The CBA being the collective bargaining agreement between the players and. Wait a sec. I've lost my video. All right. Hold on 1 second here. Where are the hammy girls? I lost my... There it goes. All right. You don't hear any noise. Let me know if you hear noise. I had a problem with it last time. Is there video noise of the girls playing? Anyone hear that? because last week we had a problem with that. Before I move on, let me know, chat. What's up, Daddy? All right. So I'll wait for that answer. But if you're hearing noise, you'll tell me, I'm sure. All right. So, and then there's the actual CBA. So the CBA is the agreement between the players collectively and the league, the 30 teams, right? So you have 30 teams that fight amongst themselves. You have about 500 players that fights among themselves, and they come together every 6 years or so, whatever, with a document that is a collective bargaining agreement. And that's what we're working off of. And we'll actually dig into that today because this issue hits on that, right? So Basketball Insiders is where you'll get your, if you want to look at pages of what the players are making, all that stuff, the salaries. If you want to look at Larry Kuhn's FAQ for instruction, which is really like your Bible, your Cliff Notes, if you remember what Cliff Notes are. And then the actual document. So we're going to go to the actual document. We're going to look back at this for just one more moment. Lakers have requested to get Luol Deng removed from their books. So what happened with Luol Deng? Like who? I don't know who was around for it, but I was actually in Vegas when that happened, and I had a chance to even talk to Jim Buss when it happened at an event that was thrown by Warren Legary to open Summer League, and he justified why he thought that was a good move, and I think history proved that it wasn't, unfortunately. The Lakers signed Luol Deng. I'm going to start typing this in. Also, hit me up on chat if something is vague, something doesn't look right, something's confusing, or if we have any technical issues. Because, again, I'm still a newbie at this. This is just my second video, so check back in like a month or two, and I'll be like flying. But right now, it's still kind of new for me. Wow, that video. See, the video dropped out again. So let me. You know what? It's not looping. That's what it is. Give me a second here. It's not looping. That's why. Yep. Try that again. Okay, there we are. Much better. See, technical difficulties. We'll get there. All right. So Luol Deng. He signed for 4 years. So we're going to go 2016-17, 2017-18, 2018-19. 2019-20. This is important because that's this season. And if it wasn't this season, we wouldn't be having this conversation. 18, 123, 123, 17, 190, 123. He has, I think I have one too many zeros. He has what you would call, I like to call like a check mark contract. It descended a little bit. I think this I have one too many zeros. Yeah, let's get rid of that. I'm off a little bit. I had one too many nines. Okay, just a moment. And then we had 18 again. And then we had 18, a little bit more than that. Let me adjust that. 18, 8, 10. 8, 1. Did I get it? Okay. So this is what the contract looked like. It was a bad decision, ultimately. 72 million. I feel like I'm off somewhere. Oh, this is off a little bit. Yeah, 72 even. So we have a 4-year contract. It was signed on July 7th, 2016. 7/7/2016 signing. All right. So he didn't work out, got hurt a lot, and there were a lot of injury reports on which he was listed as hurt. So the Lakers will have a track record of reporting injury for Luol Deng. But they, on 9/1/2018, they waived and stretched him. Okay, so what does that mean? When you waive a player, you're basically ending their contract, and another team, if they have cap room or an exception, can claim that player. In this case, no one claimed it because Deng's money was ridiculous, and there was no way. That was never going to happen. So he hit free agency. The Lakers were able to stretch out the remaining salary, but there's a window of time. That window of time is the stretch window for the current season is July 1st of XX, of whatever that year is, to 8/31XX. Okay. Now, this year is not that because this year is a mess. I'm going to talk in normal terms. So if I say this summer, if I say July 1st, whatever that means in this world that we live in, which is a crazy world. So we're not where we want to be, but we'll get there. But we're not on the normal clock. But we're just going to stick to the normal clock. So the Lakers waited outside that stretch window, right? So we're not talking about this season here, right? So this season was played. Let's call it played. And then this season was played as well. But before the 18-19 season, right, they stretched his salary, okay? So had they done it on August 31st, 2018, then they would have stretched 2018 and they would have stretched this amount. This is not what happened, just to be clear. Had they done it a day earlier, they would have stretched that amount, and he had 2 years left, right? So 2 years left. If we multiply it by 2 and add 1, 2 times 2 plus 1 equals 5, right? Okay. So had they done this, and they did not, it would have been this amount over 5 years. But instead, they waited until one day after so that the entire brunt of this year went onto that year's books. So this hit in full 2018-19 books. However, the 1920 books, the number here that is being stretched is the 18,110,123. Now we're going to find that he took a buyout, so these numbers are going to shift a little bit. So it's not a straight buyout. So I mean, it's not a straight stretch of the actual salary. So this would be 1 year left times 2 plus 1 equals 3. So if we take that and divide it by 3, we get 6,270,000. Now, they agreed, the Lakers and Luol Deng. Oops, we're falling off the page. Gotta watch that. Okay. The Lakers and Luol Deng agreed to reduce his compensation protection. That's what guaranteed means. Hopefully I don't typo, protection, to $15 million. Okay. So that's what a buyout is. Okay. He was owed 18.81. He was going to receive 15 mil of that. I want to double check that. I want to double check it didn't change. No, 2018, 2017, 18. Memory doesn't serve. I have to look it up. 2018, 19. I'd have to double check this, and I will in a bit. I want to double check, did it change 2018, 19? But we're going to assume for a second that it didn't. If he reduces compensation down to 15 million, and then we stretch it, one too many zeros, by 3, that's how we get to the number where we're at now. 5 million a year over 3 years. Okay, so Wagner, the answer is yes. Deng gets his money no matter what. Deng gets his money. Period. It's a question of timing. Okay. So when a player is waived like this, they are stretched automatically. In fact, there's always a stretch. It's a clause that was added. It was a whole concept that was added some time ago. Luol Deng was always going to be stretched. The teams have an option, though, to stretch it on their books. They don't have to stretch. They don't have to. But the money itself is. But they don't have to. But the money itself in real life is what Deng takes home. Deng is going to get paid that money. He's going to get paid over 3 years. If the Lakers did or didn't stretch him, doesn't matter. In fact, the previous year here, he was cut before the 18-19 season. I believe that money's stretched too. I want to. These are little details I would want to look into. I haven't looked into that to make sure I'm 100% right. But generally speaking, when a player is cut, the money's stretched over whatever the rules are for stretch, but it doesn't hit their books. Don't quote me on that last one there. I don't like to say things without looking at it, because as we get into this, we're going to see it's very difficult. The option, as Deddy's asking, the option is really not to stretch. They have a choice. They have to tell the league stretching or not stretching. The money itself is stretched. Deng is stretched, right? He's not going to get his money all up at once. The stretch is inherent in the system now. But whether the Lakers choose to stretch is a different story. And why would a team not stretch? Kids Premium might have returned 7.5. I haven't looked. I want to go and look up at the money for the last year, 18-19. I want to double check that because I'm really focused on the stretch now. So I can pull up, and we probably will before the stream's done, look up that year. We'll go to Basketball Insiders and we'll look up the archive to verify. I'm focused really on the stretch part. That's the 15 million. So if he gave up 7.5, I didn't come into this and even look on that because I don't really care about 18-19 right now. Our focus is actually the future, right? Because we're looking at Shams and what he tweeted. And so, yeah, what we're talking about is there's money and then there's the cap hit. And really the cap hit is the issue, right? How is the Lakers' salary cap impacted is everything, right? How much cap room are they going to have? If they're going to have cap room, how close are they to the tax? We're going to go over the long-term impact in a couple areas. But some teams are saying, I want to spend money. I want to be under the cap, like Miami, for instance. Probably want to spend money under the cap in 2021 when Giannis is a free agent. May spend it this year. They're a team that, let's say they were going to, and this is not a rumor, this is like, what if they were going to cut Kelly Olynyk just because? And they took a $10 million buyout and he was leaving, and that enabled them to do something for whatever, keep Dragic or whatever, something that helped them. But they were still saving their money for the next year. They wouldn't stretch him, right? Because they need to have cap room in 2021. However, if the Miami Heat decide, no, we want to spend right now, we have an opportunity. We're going to use our cap room. We're going to buy out and stretch Olynyk over 3 years, right? He's got 1 year left, a player option. That would be a reason to stretch because now they have the most amount of cap room right now, and they may not care about the next year because this is the year they want to spend. Or maybe next year's the year they want to spend. They want all of Olynyk's $15 million right now. So, I just chose Olynyk because of where the Miami Heat are with their cap position. In no way do I think that's something going on with Olynyk. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about Deng and his money, and basically it's $5 million a year for the next 3 years, starting with this year. So now let's roll up here and note that this is what matters. This is the last year of his contract, current season. So they can they can apply rather to get this removed during the life of the contract because he's a player who they believe had a career-ending injury. This is kind of where we're going to get into the meat of this. Let's take a look at some of these comments real quick before I get to the next phase. Is there an example of a player before Deng who's paid off and still taken off the books for health and other? Absolutely, and we'll get into that. Most recent that I remember is Omer Ashik with the Bulls, and we could talk about Nikola Pekovic. I think Mozgov was denied. John Lure is not decided yet. Lure is stretched. I believe that the Bucks will request John Lure to be pulled off their books, so that hasn't happened yet. Teletovic is a good example. This is not uncommon. And yes, it's been denied. I thought Mozgov was denied. I'd have to double check. I could be wrong. I'd have to look for it to know for sure. That's right. So yeah, I vaguely remember the buyout for Deng being 7.3. That sounds familiar. So like I said, before we're done, we'll look at the archive and look at that. Yeah, Mozgov is off the books. Okay, so did his contract end, or was he pulled off? So maybe Mozgov as well. But yeah, there are cases where it hasn't been allowed, I believe. But they're not jumping up to the top of my brain like that right now. All right, I think we're up to date on the chat questions. All right, so let's move over here. Okay. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, so let me get this going here. I'm going to move the chat with it, pardon me, so I can keep track of you guys as well. All right, so this is the collective bargaining agreement, and I put the link at the top of the Google sheet. And so that's where you want to find it when we get going. So the way that this works, it's a lengthy document. You probably don't want to read this document straight through. It is laborious. It's all definitions in the beginning. You're not going to get to the meat of what you want. It's better to kind of go section by section. And so you could look at the index here, or rather the table of contents. You can go to the index at the back. I believe there's an index at the back, isn't there? Yeah, I think so anyway. But we have something specific. So they're organized by articles and then by sections. This happens to be Article 7, Section 4, and then Part H. So we're going to jump, and you could all follow along if you go to the link on my Google sheet. And this is where it starts, right? So Article 7, it's page 189. This is Section 4. We get to the part that says long-term injuries. Move this out of the way. Okay, let me double check and make sure that looks right. Okay, so you can see this all on the page. We see this properly? Question mark. Yeah, thank you, Rafi. Someone got rejected. I remember that. I know that they've most recently, was it John Wall was not allowed to take off. The Wizards were not allowed to take. I think they were denied a disabled player exception, which is a whole different topic and has nothing to do with what I don't want to say it has nothing to do with what we're doing, because it is semi-related, but it's not related directly. I'd have to think long and hard about a player who is not allowed to do this, because I don't think there has been one recently. Okay, cool. You see it properly. Okay, so let's continue. So we'll read it together, and it is a little, it's legalese. This is like a contract. It helps to have a legal background. I am not a lawyer. I have some bit of a legal background, but not from like a formal perspective. All right, so any player who suffers a career-ending injury or illness and whose contract is terminated by the team in accordance with the NBA waiver procedure will be excluded from team salary as follows. So that's what we're talking about. The Lakers want to remove the $5 million from their books. How do you do that? This is how you file for this. So subject to what's below, a team may apply to the NBA to have the player's salary cap for each remaining salary cap year covered by the contract excluded from team salary beginning on the first anniversary of the date of the last regular season or playoff game in which the player played, provided that if the player played in fewer than 10 regular season and playoff games in the last season in which he played, then the earliest date upon which a team may apply to the NBA to have the player's salary excluded from its team salary, this is wordy, in accordance with shall be the later of 60 days following the date, or, and this is where we get to the heart, the first anniversary of the date the first anniversary of the date during a prior season in which the player last played in a regular season game under such contract. So basically, that's the heart of it. The Lakers could apply on July the 1st. No, it would be, so the last day, a year from the last day he played. We're well past that. That's the bottom line. So the immediate question, why didn't they apply a year after? The answer is a year after he was on the Timberwolves. He was on another team. It's hard to make that application and say, oh yeah, he has a career-ending injury when he's like literally on another team. Like, this is kind of the issue with the whole topic to begin with. A case that the Lakers are going to have to make that's tricky. Okay, so a year went by. We get to free agency. Luol Deng is done with Minnesota. He agrees to sign with Chicago. for a day, really, and is retired. So they signed him ceremoniously, but he was basically done. So he signed with the Lakers, 4-year deal, stretched, signed with the Wolves, finished the season, signed with the Bulls for a day, waived and retired, all that, and he's done. Okay. So that's why they wouldn't have done it then, because he was an active player. And if Deng retired and acknowledged that his career was over in July of 2019, then the Lakers wouldn't have been able to get cap room in time anyway, right? You're not going to get cap. It takes a month or two for the league to look at all the medicals and to make a ruling on this kind of issue. Maybe a month. I don't know the exact timing, but I'll say 6 weeks, a month, something like that. So the Lakers, had they applied when Deng retired, they would have already used their cap room probably before he signed with the Bulls anyway. Let me check my notes here. He signed with the Bulls on okay, so he signed with the Bulls on October 17th, indicating he was retired, right? So could they have, if they didn't know that he was retired and maybe he comes back to play and signs with another team, all the work was done July 1st. Well, July 6th, right? The Lakers signed all their contracts. They traded for AD. They signed KCP. They used all their cap room. And the Lakers were not a team over the tax, right? So there was no issue there. So it's something to think about. Like, why didn't they? Because it made no sense, because they didn't get cap room and they didn't need tax relief. So why would they? And why did they wait until this point? Well, all season it didn't matter. It matters before this offseason. And if they were going to do it at an earlier date, we were sort of in the middle of all the shutdown and all this kind of stuff. So, all right, so let me make sure. So I'm just checking, make sure we're good. I just want to test in case streams drop. I don't know. I'm still learning. And I had noticed that there's a lag. Like, you guys are chatting. I don't know if there's a little bit of a lag. Anyway, it's definitely fun. I appreciate y'all participating. So let's keep going. So we've established the time frame. The Lakers could get rid of Deng within a year, after a year of his last game, and we're well past that. Okay, so now we get to more of the meat of it, right? And this is the determination of whether a player suffered a career-ending injury or illness shall be made by a physician. So there's a doctor that is selected jointly by the NBA and the NBPA, or it could be a fitness to play panel. So there's a whole lot of detail in the CBA, which we're not going to cover today, on the fitness to play panel. And that's more for your controversial type questions, like Chris Bosh wanting to come back, where it's not black and white. Like, Deng is retired. Maybe this could go to a fitness to play panel. I would guess that it's probably just a single physician who will decide this. Maybe it'll be who knows. And by the way, they won't tell it. No one's going to say, "Oh yeah, this is how it was decided." We're going to be the NBA is pretty transparent, but they're not going to give this kind of detail out. So, a player shall be deemed to have suffered a career-ending injury or illness if it is determined by such a physician or panel that the player has an illness, whatever. So he's hurt. We're not reading anything crazy here. He can't play again, or substantially impairs his ability to play basketball. There's nothing interesting here. Unacceptable risk of life-threatening injury, all that. By fitness to play, to that the player's injury or illness that would create a material elevated risk of death. All these things don't really apply. The guy is retired, so it's not a fight to see, does Luol Deng stay retired? Okay. So now we get into an area that's confusing, I think, but I think it's relevant, and it's not necessarily applicable to the Lakers situation, but I would argue that it kind of suggests the intent of the rule. And if I'm a lawyer, you want to argue, if you're arguing that it's not the letter of the law that matters, but the intent of the law, because maybe the letter of the law doesn't help your side. Two lawyers arguing aren't going to say, the law says this. Some might say the law says this, but it means this. And that's kind of, why we have, the legal system as we have it. It's up to the judges to decide what it means. And in this case, the league is the judge. The NBA is the judge. Maybe Adam Silver, his staff, whatever. They're going to look at the legality of this and decide. So what this says here, Basically, after a player is excluded from the salary, so that you remove the player from the salary, if the player plays in 25 NBA regular season and playoff games in any season for any team, the excluded salary for the salary cap covering such season and each subsequent salary cap year shall thereupon be included in team salary. In other words, if the player plays in 25 games after you've removed the salary, then it will be put back. Okay, so this is a key point, even though it doesn't necessarily directly impact what we're talking about, because the money hasn't been removed from the Lakers' books. So how do you say 25, if he plays 25 games, he's not going to play 25 more games. He's done. However, he did play 22 more games, and he played them with the Wolves. And to me, this is the heart of the question here for the league to decide based on the intent and really based on the medicals of what the Lakers have to offer here. So we'll get to that in a moment. So basically, if it's 25 games or more, the player's money is put back on. And there's a little bit more in here. Make sure you guys can see that. Okay. Shall not apply. This is just a lot of legalese. I don't want to read every line. You guys can read this. We'll go to part 4. If a team applies to have the player excluded, player shall cooperate. So whatever, player has to help. Can't not go to the doctor. Only the team, this is part 5, only the team with the player with which the player was under contract at the time of his career-ending injury or illness became known or reasonably should have known shall be permitted to apply to have the player's salary excluded from the team salary. This is very relevant. The argument would be that this is Minnesota's claim, not the Lakers' claim. It doesn't do the Minnesota Timberwolves any benefit to remove the salary, but if he had a career-ending injury, maybe it was the Achilles injury that he suffered while with the Wolves. The Lakers would argue, no, he was hurt with us. We let him out of his contract, and if he passed another physical, so be it. But he didn't get to 25 games, which is that threshold in another context. So no, he really wasn't healthy with the Wolves, and ultimately had to retire because of injuries. The argument against the Lakers' point of view is that no, his career-ending injury was suffered with the Wolves, and that's why he's done. You can't just say he was bad and we cut him, because that's what happened with the Lakers. But at the same time, part of the reason why he was bad is because he wasn't healthy. He wasn't the same young player he was. That's not a good enough reason. But if they're saying he was legitimately hurt, now, my understanding is that certainly he wasn't healthy, but was he career-ending injury unhealthy? That's hard to say. I don't have access to the Lakers' medical records, right? You don't. We're not going to see them. So this is really what the key is. So we're talking about basically, this section says that it's really up to the Wolves. It's not up to the Lakers because it's really the last healthy. When did he get hurt? But the Lakers are saying no. He was hurt before he ever went to the Wolves, and the argument would be that this part here about the 25 games is the spirit of the rule by saying, so let's say that Luol Deng finished playing with us. We took the money off, and he said, nope, I'm healthy. I'm going to go play. And he tried, and he got to 22 games, and it didn't work out. The Lakers wouldn't remove that salary. They wouldn't get that salary put back on. It was already removed. Nothing was, he didn't reach that threshold. So that's kind of the threshold I personally think that the Lakers are going to argue, even though it doesn't technically apply by the literal interpretation of what we're saying here, because this has to do with 25 games after. It says right here, if after, select tool, if after the player's salary is excluded from, it doesn't quite highlight like I'd like. So if after the player's salary is excluded from team salary, that's the key. It's not after. So the 25 game threshold doesn't really apply. And in this section here, it's only the team. So they can't say that the Achilles injury had something to do with it. All right, number 6, notwithstanding to the contrary in this agreement, if a team applies to have excluded, team shall be free. The Lakers can't re-sign Luol Deng. It's not an issue. There are other things like I think I slipped the part where I think they're not allowed to re-sign Luol Deng. That's in the language here as well. They're not trying to re-sign Luol Deng. So this starts for those who joined in a little late. This is page 189 of the actual CBA. The link is in the Google Sheet. And I recommend you look at this section. So you don't have to read the whole CBA. Start at this part. Just learn this part. Try to make sense of this part. You'll notice that there are sections that have capitalized words. This is just a little salary cap tip. Like salary cap year is all capitalized. Contract is capitalized. If we go to the top, and if we go to definitions, let's see here, scroll down a little bit. Definitions. These are the definitions. Each one of these capitalized words is defined here somewhere, right? So this is, if you see a word in the CBA that is capitalized out of context, right? It's not the beginning of a sentence or whatnot. Then there's a definition for it. So, for instance, contract. You'll see contract is bolded. Okay, well, they mean uniform player contract. Fine. You want to make this difficult on me? Fine. Oops, too far. Uniform. Is this alphabetical order? I don't even know. I think it is. Yeah. So we got to scroll down real quick. The definition of contract says basically look at uniform player contract. And uniform player contract. Hope I'm not making you dizzy. I would have. Okay, there we are. DDDD. 4 Ds. Uniform player contract or player contract or contract. So there are 3 different terms that they'll use in the document. It means the standard form of written agreement between a person and a team required for use in the NBA by Article 2, pursuant to which such person is employed by a team as a professional basketball player. Right. It's a contract between the player and a team to play basketball. Shocking. But there's that's just a rule of thumb. If you're going to attempt to read this thing, which is a beast, then that's a little tip. I'm going to copy real quick into the chat in case you didn't get access to the Google Sheet. Okay, see that right there? That is the link to the NBA Players Association, the union's website, and they have the CBA right there, so you can download it here. I'll post this in here as well. This is Larry's FAQ. Highly recommend that. He has a whole section. I haven't talked to Larry yet about the streaming thing that I'm doing, and I don't want to share any of his site without his permission. Haven't had a chance to chat with him about it, so I'm not going to pull that up. Maybe if Larry's cool with that, then in the future we can look at his FAQ and compare. But I'm not comfortable until I talk to Larry. I have too much respect for him to start using his stuff without his permission. Hey, that's a novel idea. All right, so let's jump back over here. Did I hit the right button? Give me a second. Nope. Okay. So we're going to take a moment. Cool, I've got 3 cameras. All right, let's take a quick peek. So this is Basketball Insiders. And this is where I post the salaries. So I just wanted to check this before we move on to the next thing. So we can see here that Luol Deng is right here. I have a W, meaning he was waived. $5 million. $5 million. That's what's on their books the next 2 years. So we're not just talking the current season, we're talking about next year, which is relevant. And we'll get into the implications of all this shortly because we'll look at the math with Deng and without. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to scroll down. I've got all this information. I highly recommend you use these as your source of information. I'm going to build out the rest of the archives shortly because the season's over. I've done some archives. Some of the dates are out of date because the league postponed the start of the new season. Okay, so if we take a look here, we have Luol Deng waived. So this is the number we're looking for. Okay, copy. All right, let me jump back over here. And let's jump into here. Okay, so let's take a look here. And we're going to paste this right here. Okay. So if we take a look right here. Let's do it this way. So this is how much Deng earned this year for 18-19. This is how much he earned for this year, 15 for the 19-20 year. 15, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If we sum that up, oh wait, I've got it backwards. Sorry. Try that again. This plus this. Okay. 29. He was owed. We'll just do this. Oops, wrong line. Okay. This is the amount of the buyout. Got it? Let me pull over the chat here. Lost you. Where are you guys? There you are. Okay. Just get this moved over here. Okay, so Luol Deng's buyout right here. I was focused on the 15 million, but he took off 3.6 million of the 18-19 season, and then he took off equals this minus that 3.81 of the next year, and that's what was stretched, the remainder. So it was a 7.455933 buyout. Okay. So what have we learned? Let's take a look here. Make sure we're up to date. Hey, Cole, thank you. Appreciate it. Doing my best to try to just explain what I can. So what do we have? We have the argument. Okay. So from the Lakers side, Lakers argument, we have the medicals, most important. Okay. They have to have proof on their end from their medical records at the time that Luol Deng not only couldn't finish out the season with them or finish out their contract, out his contract, that he had a career-ending injury. The argument would be is that he didn't reach 25 games. The spirit of the rule, arguably. So they have to make the case. So it's not just that they can say number 2 matters. They have to argue that it matters. It may not. It may not matter to the NBA. They may not care. The NBA may look and say, he didn't have a career-ending injury. He played the next year. Period. The Lakers will say, he didn't play 25 games. And if you look at the rule, in the case of had we gotten rid of his money, and he did go play for the Wolves, he didn't make it to 25 games, and he's retired. So had it gone in that direction, we would have met the threshold. So here's our medicals. This is what we believed. This is why we did what we did. You know, personally, I think that reality is that they realized they made the mistake, signed the wrong guy. They wanted to go after LeBron. They needed cap room, all those things. They did the stretch. They did what they did. It feels like a reach. It does. And I think the league is going to do it? So, do I think the league buys it? No, I don't. Flat out, I don't. However, is it possible? Of course. Missing element. I don't, and we don't have access to the Lakers' medical records. We don't. We don't know what they say. It's very feasible that the Wolves should not have cleared him of his physical. You can argue, and the Lakers I'm sure will. We can even add this to the list. Wolves were, no offense to the Wolves here, negligent in clearing Deng to play. And the argument would be, look at the results. Make that a 3. Note, look at the results. He didn't last. Achilles injury, etc. It's a real argument. Absolutely. They can make it. The quality of their medical records, I think, determine it. I don't think the league buys it. I don't know if Minnesota will be brought into it. Will they need to see, will Minnesota be brought in? I'm guessing yes, sure. They want to see their records. Why was he cleared? And what led to his end, so to speak, right? I guess I should put a question mark there. These are the kind of questions. We don't have the answers to these questions. The Lakers don't. It's up to the league to answer these questions. But at least now we've looked at the actual document. So I feel like the goal, we've done part one of this. The goal. What are the rules, right? The CBA says he has to be a year removed. All that's valid. Everything's valid except the injury that he retired from might have been the one that he suffered with the Wolves, might have been that he shouldn't have been playing with the Wolves at all. And then we have kind of a softer part of the argument, which is not a direct part, but I think relevant is the 25-game threshold where the Lakers can at least argue that. So let's see. I'll look at a few comments and we'll get to the next part. Let's see. Thank you, Gary. Looking at someone's play is not enough. There's a lot of bad players that come in and out of the league. You can't just pull say they're retired forever just because they can never get a job because they're not good at basketball. Wolves and Lakers doctors going to be fighting to the death after this one. Maybe. I'm sure there are times where things do get a little contentious between teams, and maybe there's bad blood, but you really can't, in my opinion, hold grudges in this league because you have 30 interconnected teams. And there's going to be some crossover. And not to mention that people move team to team. People are hired and fired. And you don't know where your next job is going to be. So holding grudges when you might be trying to get a job with that team in the future, you don't know if your boss gets fired and you lose your job with it. You have no idea. You don't know if the team gets sold and then that team hires the other person that you hate. It's not good for anyone. I'm not the kind of person who lives my life with bad blood anyway. I don't believe that serves any purpose. So I try to be forgiving and understanding of people who are maybe a little unfriendly. Try to meet people where they are. So I'm going to assume that the Lakers and the Wolves don't hate each other after this. Remember, they share a common history of the city of Minneapolis. Has anyone done an extension and stretch to stretch a player's salary over? Oh, so I had written at the time. This is for Jeffrey. So I had some discussions with someone, and then I kind of put it all together, and I talked to Larry, and we kind of went crazy about what if the Lakers gave Luol Deng an extension, and then only part of that extension was guaranteed, and then they stretched him. It would allow them to stretch over a longer period of time, and it was absolutely circumvention, where you're basically stretching the rules, and it's kind of a pun using the word stretch, but that's not what I intended. Like you're playing with the rules. Like it was always not legit. But let's say you gave Luol Deng an extension of guaranteed, fully guaranteed money, and then stretched him. There's no reason to argue that the union's going to support that he got more money. So if you paid him the full amount and then after a period of time stretched him, that could work. But if you paid him zero in that extension, then clearly it was circumvention to extend him and then stretch him. So extend, waive, stretch. The league, 90% of the time, in most cases, there's a line where, if it was fully guaranteed, they'd allow it. If it was not guaranteed, where's that line where if it was 50%, would they allow it? If it's 75%, there's a point where it would work. I spoke to a lot of people. Some people said I'm crazy. There's no way the league would put that through. Me writing the article ahead of time certainly made it a non-option, because now the league, had they seen it, someone would have sent it to them had it happened, and they would have, seen through it. So I probably, was it the theorem that like the observing of the phenomenon changes the phenomenon? I don't know what the principle is, but that's kind of what happened there. It's never been done, and it probably never will be, because it'll probably be not allowed. So, all right. So later, bad injury. Did Deng play any preseason games in minute? I'm pretty sure they took away the preseason thing. That was something with Darius Miles, where in a previous CBA, he played preseason games. No one had counted on that, and that meant that the Blazers' books were fried. It was a really ugly situation at the time. I believe they took preseason out of that. I believe it's only, but from what we read, NBA, regular season and playoff games. You can scroll back into the stream earlier and after it's over or something like that, and check that part out if you missed it. Let me see here before we get on to the next part. Thank you for your explanation. Not from us, and this cap stuff is interesting. You know what? I don't know how to pronounce that. Diogo? It is complicated whether you're from this country or not, flat out. This is not light reading. If you're checking out this stream, thank you. So appreciate it so much. The response has been really tremendous. I totally didn't expect this. But I can't thank you guys enough. However, don't talk that way about yourself, young man. It is totally confusing for all of us, including myself. And even when I first tweeted on this about the 25 games, I didn't really look at it closely and express properly what I meant by the 25 games. I don't like deleting tweets, so like if I could have gone back in time, I would have tweeted it a little more clearly as to what I was meaning. So this is confusing for all of us. Is there a chance the Wolves would say the Lakers were not truthful when they released Deng? No, the Lakers waived Deng and stretched him. It's up to the Wolves to make their own decisions about signing a player, whether he's healthy or not. You can argue in a trade that something was hidden. There are requirements, and the teams are basically declaring that there's nothing hidden when they make a trade, that this is the full extent of their information. If there is something hidden, then we could get into that. And we've had cases where teams have like literally gone after each other because something wasn't included. That's not the case here with Deng. And so Edinger, yes, that was the uncertainty principle. Is that what the one is about the whatever nonsense I was talking about? About observed phenomenon changing because it's being observed. I don't know what that's called. Larry's great at knowing the names of those things. He knows all the different theorems and stuff like that. All right, and then so no, the preseason doesn't count. It used to, at least by my memory, but what we just read. So let's move on to the next phase. And I don't think there's a lot more to it. There's two sections that we need to get to, and I like starting with blank sheets because we can just sort of like build out everything from scratch together. So I'm not dropping in anything new. But let's go ahead and go to the Lakers. I'm going to copy something in. All right, so we've made some assumptions here. Let's take a look if it pays. Okay. Do we make it? No. Try it again. There it is. Okay. All right. Bear with me. Okay, so we have to make a few assumptions because we do not have enough information because no teams have enough information right now. We don't know what the next cap is going to be. Here we are. Let me try one thing here. Nope. Okay. All right, look at that. Okay. Just want to make sure that works. I like it over here, though. Okay. Sorry, that was a little technical check. All right, so, okay, so Deng and Cook. Let's move these numbers down a little bit. One more. Actually, we only need 12, so let's go back up. And let's make sure this sums. And we're going to set, so this is the team salary. This is the salary cap. This is really an estimate of flat. And then this is the cap space. Okay. So if the Lakers let Anthony Davis go, he signs somewhere else. Everyone opts out. They waive and stretch Quinn Cook. Then the Lakers could have $34 million in cap room, but that's not likely to happen, I don't think, because I believe that Anthony Davis will resign. So let's then plug in Anthony Davis. They never have cap room because his cap hold is taking up, and we're not going to get into it much. I did discuss this a little bit more in the last stream. So you can check it out on my Facebook page, but also not on my Facebook page, my YouTube page, sorry. Also on the home page here. I'm going to list the streams right here. And so you can always go to the home page, and then you see how it says October 13th. You can go to our notes for October 13th and follow along, although it's a little messy. I'm trying to be a little bit more linear in this discussion and go straight down. So I'll put that up there. But we're estimating a flat cap. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put in Anthony Davis. The Lakers never have cap room because his cap hold is basically the max. We're going to assume that this is the amount that they pay. Okay. Hold on, getting there. Okay. So now they have $2 million in cap room. But I also think that, let me get over to the Lakers for my source material. I can't show you guys everything, but trying to be as transparent, get you guys as much information as possible. I'm going to assume, and we won't know these answers yet for some time, but that these guys opt in. Avery is a wild card, and I don't know what he's going to do, flat out. Because, he opted out of the bubble. Maybe he wants to stay. I don't know. He's I like Avery a lot. I have a lot of respect for him. He's going to make decisions that are right for him and that necessarily aren't the most, money isn't the primary motivation for him. I think we learned that because he lost money not going back to the bubble. And I have respect for someone who makes decisions that are based on his family over money. All right, so Avery, and I don't think JaVale can get that money elsewhere. So as you can see, we are over the cap. And then we're going to go a little further here, okay? And this is similar to what we did the other day, last week. If you want more detail on where I'm going with this, watch the stream. But this is the tax line, okay? Over the tax. Actually, they're under the tax. So bear with me as I build this out. They are under, so we'll go negative. So team salary minus the line. Let's reset these colors. Reset. Okay. Let me make sure you guys are still with me. I think as long as the chat keeps moving, I'm comfortable. Okay. There we are. So now they still under the tax, but there's also one other line. This is the hard cap. We'll call it the apron hard cap. And this, again, we're assuming that everything is flat. Different projection, and we can do it maybe if we have time, if the cap goes up to a much higher number. But we're assuming for the moment that it's flat. All right, here's the hard cap. And again, over the hard cap, which is illegal if. And then if the team uses their BAE above taxpayer mid-level E, or acquires via sign and trade. I'm not going to get too much into this. Biannual exception, BAE. Let me copy this in right here. Okay, lower this on the screen, make sure you can see. Okay. And let's do this. We're almost there. Team salary. Okay. So they do not have a hard cap, and they have 24 million of room to work with. Okay. All right. So let's plug in a few more Lakers. We're still going to stretch Cook out. We can debate that, but we're going to do that for now, just to kind of simplify things. But let's say that KCP comes back. They have KCP, and let's say they bring him back at 12 million starting. I'm not going to worry about the number of years because that's not relevant right now. Well, we can talk about the next summer on a different stream, and we will touch on it briefly for this one, for when we start talking about Deng. And we're going to do that with full bird rights. I'll talk a little bit more about this again in the last stream. And then Rondo. Let's bring back Rondo. And let's pay him $6 million. I don't know the number. Just throwing out numbers. Early bird can be up to 10 mil roughly. I'm going to say it's going to be up to 10.1 million roughly. Okay. All right. So where are we? We are close to the tax. And actually, I'm going to add in a few lines here. Insert one. Give me a second. Insert one. Oops. Good enough. And one more. And let's extend that total. Okay, the total went with us. Yep, 170. Nope, 170. Yep, that's right. 13, 14, 15. 13, 14, 15. Let's see. Who else is free agent? We got AD. We got KCP. We got Bradley. We got McGee, who opt in. We got Cook is waived. We got Rondo, Kuzma, Markieff. Okay, so Markieff is an interesting case. Scroll down for Markieff real quick. Just a little note that's kind of off topic. The Lakers paid him 1.75, which looks like it's below the minimum. His minimum, he was an 8-year. Okay, so let's copy this in here. So had Markieff signed on day 1, this would have been his salary. Okay. So what I believe he can get is 120% of his previous salary. I want to double check this, right? So his previous salary is this, okay, 2.1. His 2020-21 minimum is this, okay? So this was his 19-20, 2020-21. I believe, and I could be wrong, that it's 120% of this. The minimum from the previous year times 120%. If I'm wrong, it's 120% of this. So we're talking about the difference of $14,000, but so basically same thing. They can use his non-bird rights to stick around. So if the market for Markieff is the biannual, right? Let's say this is the Markieff market. I don't know what the market will be. If this is the market for Markieff, Lakers can pay, and what we'll do is we'll call it, just to round the numbers, and because I'm not exactly sure, by $18,000, 2.123 roughly. I think I have too many zeros again. Yep. Okay, 2.8 million. Okay, non-bird. I'd argue they might be able to get that done. Maybe with promises of future things which are not technically legal, but and then for Dwight's minimum. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost done. All right. So Dwight's non-bird is that. So that's what we're going to plug in. All right. So let's go. Dwight Howard, 230777704, and for Markieff, we're just going to round it. 28123 I think. Yep. 2812123. Roughly. Non-bird. Okay. Reset. And there we are. Okay, so now we're at 135, right? So we are in the tax. Lakers are fine paying the tax. The problem is that if they want to pay, generates hard cap. If they want to use their biannual or mid-level, that won't work. And this is what we covered in more depth in the last stream. And it's why the tax level matters so much. But, so what I'm going to do is copy all this, right? So let's do MLE. They sign a player for 9-2. Let's just copy this. They are now over. And this is illegal. So I'm going to put a note here, illegal. Because they are over the apron of 139-ish. And that can't happen. You can't ever be over the apron. Apron only matters if you've used the mid-level above 5.7. So this is legal. Here, so let's for future generations, future viewers, let's copy and paste. This is legal. No hard cap. Okay. You follow me? So basically, they won't have access to their biannual, and they won't have access to their full mid-level This is legal, 5.7. This is illegal, 9.2. And that's going to matter when you're trying to add one piece. Whatever. We saw LeBron talk to Jeremy Grant. Is he coming for 9.2? No. He's going to stay with Denver for $15 million. But at least the Lakers can offer that. But they can't in our first scenario if they're paying that much to KCP and Rondo. All right, so let's make another copy and paste. And this is really taking us to our conclusion for the stream, though I might make one more point at the end looking ahead. Now let's say that the Lakers, they win. Boom, $5 million off, okay? Removed by a recent request, okay? They win the argument, which I, again, do not think will happen, okay? They are over the hard cap, the apron, but barely, right? Well, what if instead of paying KCP $12 million, they pay him $11 million? And what if they pay Rondo $5 million? Well, now they're under. So now they've signed a player for $9.2 million. It lost a little bit. KCP, Rondo lost a little bit of money. And they still have room to sign a rookie. Not really. They might have to pay some. What if they use this? Well, let's leave the mid-level as high as possible. What if they trade JaVale? And this helps the illegal scenario as well. So let's jump over here. Let's see, left. Is this, I get that? No, that's that one, and then this one, right? Nope, wrong way. I'll get it. Take a quick peek right here. Please don't take these as rumors, but this right here, trade exception, Kent Bazemore. Okay. Did that make it onto the screen? There it is. Okay. See that right there? So I'm going to copy that into our document here. Okay. So this is not a rumor. This is just me playing around. But let's say the Blazers lose, do not want to keep Whiteside. They can trade for JaVale McGee, and he's gone. He's off the Lakers' books. The Blazers get a cheap backup center who could certainly fill the role perfectly fine. He would be good. I like JaVale a ton. I think really highly of just who he is. I found him to be way more, I think, wise, if anything. Like, he's just really interesting. He's like really humorous and fun, but he's also carries a wisdom I didn't think that he had based on preconceived notions from the Shaqting the Fool stuff. But he's really interesting, and I think he'd be a great fit. Whatever. I don't know what Portland wants to do. Can't start putting, that out there. We have no idea. But that's the solution not only to this, because then if you take off JaVale from this, now you've got like $5 million. Now you can arguably do, you have to replace him, but BAE of 3.623, 1.2.3. Yeah, there you go. So they can go and spend on two players a little bit more than the minimum and still be under that apron. I'm going to take that out. That was just a little off the cuff thing. And let's put JaVale back. Okay. Now legal because Deng is off. Okay, so I think I've kind of made my main point for the stream. So we kind of have like the first part was looking in the language of the CBA and making sense of it, right? Now we're looking at like the practical why. What would be the purpose here? It's to enable the Lakers to use their full mid-level exception and possibly biannual exception while also paying KCP and Rondo to stay without having to worry as much about the tax line. And that, I think, is a big deal. Avery opt out changes the math. JaVale opt out changes the math. Trading away Avery, if they trade him, I'm not saying they would. Trading away JaVale would. I don't think the Lakers are trading Danny Green unless there was some major upgrade, or Caruso is such a valuable piece. Kuzma is probably their best asset. I don't think there's intention to trade these players unless the return is really, really good. Certainly possible. You open the door of all possibilities, and we can't talk about anything because anything is possible, right? So we're just trying to keep it. What if the Lakers do everything they can to keep this roster together, willing to cut some of the players who didn't play much in the playoffs, a JaVale or an Avery, and replace them with a full mid-level player? It's arguably possible. It's a lot more possible if Deng is off the books. That's the main point. I'm going to wrap this up with one more topic. Should be very short, and I really appreciate you guys sticking with it. This has been really fun, and I hope it was informative. We're going to look at the future real quick. And again, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen this season, let alone 2022, 21-22. Okay, so just a quick note. If the cap is higher than flat, say 115 mil, and the tax is 139 mil, the Lakers naturally have more flexibility. Okay? So the Deng thing is nice and helpful, but less imperative. And even though it's imperative for the Lakers, I don't think it happens. So I do think they're going to have to make more difficult choices than they would, otherwise. Deng makes it easier to keep JaVale and not sign another center, but they do have Tristan Thompson and Nerlens Noel as clutch members of LeBron's agency, Rich Paul, and they do have DeMarcus Cousins is very tight with the team and with Anthony Davis, all that. So there are possibilities if McGee isn't on the team. Okay, but thinking ahead to the future. We don't know what the cap will be, but let's just assume that for a moment that the cap is 115 million in 2021-22, and LeBron is under contract by option if he wants for this amount, and Luol Deng is not under contract, but he's taken up $5 million. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And AD. Let's see what we had him as. We had him as this number here. Work with me. Just take a second to build this out. Okay. And then we'll drop out some of these zeros. 1, 2. Fonts are a little funky, but and so LeBron can opt out. And what LeBron is eligible for is a raise of up to 105, up to the max. And we're saying that the salary cap will be 115, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that his max is 0.35 of that. Okay. So this is assume the cap for 2021-22. 35% max. Okay. Make these numbers or dollars. Okay, so you can see that this is the max. So this is the league max. LeBron's option. And then his personal max, which is 105% of the previous year's salary. Okay. So you see that this is the best number, right? So he can get more than the max, and he can get more than his option. So LeBron probably opts out, and there's a little quirk in the over 38 rule. This is the last year he can sign for 4 years. So he probably does so at the max. So that precludes those who want LeBron to take a discount to allow for the Lakers to get a third star. Okay. So, but you never know. Could still take less. His choice. I'm not going to put that on LeBron. I'm going to assume he doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in this bigger number, 41180,544. And we're going to move Deng down a little bit. 1, 2, 3. We're going to count it out to 12. This is how you figure out the cap space. Almost. Bear with me. What we'll do is we're going to wrap this point up, and then I'll look through the chat, and we'll run through the last bit of questions, and then we'll call it. I do want to say I do have, and it's on the sheet here. I should, I suppose, advertise this. Did I not put it here? I will if I haven't. There it is. If you can contribute to Venmo or Patreon, Patreon will be subscribing. I can give you access to a Discord server where you can chat regularly with some of the folks, some who are in the stream. And then Venmo, if you just want to make a contribution, it does help for the time, especially because I'm not monetized yet with YouTube. So it would be great, whatever you could offer, small amount. Just your time in and of itself is awesome, so I appreciate that. If you don't have the means, then don't even bother. If you do have the means, it would be great. That's my obligation. All right, so let's sum this up real quick. So we're trying to figure out what the Lakers cap room situation looks like next year, not this year. And we're assuming they renounce every single body on that roster, right? So there's no more Caruso. There's no more KCP. There's nobody. Everybody who you fell in love with if you're a Laker fan, or everybody that you hate if you're not a Laker fan, they're gone. And these are the roster charges. So we're saying, can the Lakers whittle it down to nothing? I'm not saying should they, but can they? What does the cap situation look like? And this is where we're just going to talk about Deng one last point and why it matters. Okay. So this would be the total salary. And then this would be the salary cap. We're saying 115, 123. And then we're subtracting equals this minus that. And I hope I haven't missed something. I'll double check my numbers in a moment. Bear with me. I like building it out in front of you, so I think it's easier to follow as opposed to me just copying and pasting a whole bunch of prefigured formulas. So that's the motivation here, even if it's a little bit, it takes a little bit longer sometimes. But I think it helps. So let's just call this cap room. Okay. So we've got one player, LeBron at the max. We've got AD at 32. All right. And we're saying it's a $115 million cap. And so there are 3 max tiers. So there's 0 to 6 years of service, YOS, years of service, is 25% of that. Okay. That's the max. 7 to 9 year YOS equals that times 0.3. And make sure I got this right. And then 10 plus YOS equals this times 0.35. Okay, 40 million. Okay. So we've got LeBron at that number. I feel like we're off on AD's number. We are. AD, that was his starting salary. He would have gotten a raise times 1.08. So his number would be 35, 361, 360. Okay, there we are. That's better. All right, total salary, and I'm assuming they didn't stretch Cook. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12. Deng total. All right, so they're at 24. So they do not have a max slot initially without LeBron taking a pay cut. But if you remove Luol Deng, they're awfully close to it. They do have a max tier 1 slot, but not a tier 2 slot. So this does factor into, let me make sure that's visible. Okay. So that's the numbers right there. So LeBron, that's at his max. Again, he could take less than that. That's AD re-signing this season, this offseason at the max. This is the 8% raise on top of that. Then this is roster charges all the way 3 through 12. We've taken off Deng. The Lakers win their claim. I think I left out a capital. So what that does is that gives them a lower tier. But what also could happen, and we'll just do one last scenario. We'll look at question and answer in the chat, and we'll wrap for the day. Okay, what if LeBron takes $35 million to match AD, roughly, right? And we're saying these are the maxes. Well, that's up to LeBron, but they would have max tier 2, 34, 500, 1, 2, 3. So that would work. LeBron needs to take a pretty sizable discount to get there, and that's without Luol Deng, right? If we do it with Luol Deng, then he needs to go down to about 30, say 31, let's call it 31,500. See how close that gets us. Right, that's close enough. That's the point. So does LeBron feel this generous? I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't think he does, but you never know. That is the last year you can take a 4-year deal. Matters, but the Lakers can say, we'll pay you max for as long as you want. and don't worry about it. Do 1+1, do whatever you want. We'll give you the max the next year, whatever. And so a 1+1 and then a 3-year deal at the next max would be totally doable. He would get the same number of years. It's not like I'm saying LeBron take the minimum, which he could, and that would completely, the Lakers could sign, God, if LeBron took the minimum, his number would be this, and this is just silliness. So please don't take, this is not your takeaway. They could sign a $34 million player and still have room for a bottom tier max or a bunch of role players. Or they can keep, that would probably be your KCPs, your Carusos, and the guys you're keeping. But that's not going to happen. I think it's a stretch to even say this happens. But generally speaking, LeBron would have to take between $31 million if Deng, and this is really our last point that I'm going to make. There you go. It's $31 million. With Deng, it's 30. What would we say here? 35-ish. So 35. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 35-ish. We can go up a little higher. 36. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Yeah, he can make if Deng 36. 1, 2, 3. 36. 1, 2. No Deng. So if you said to me, would LeBron take $36 million if it meant that they could sign Giannis? It's possible. I don't think that's outrageous. Would he take 31.5? Harder to argue. But it's food for thought, folks. So there's kind of a wrap up. Looked at the language. It's a long shot, in my opinion, regarding the Lakers getting that money off. The 25-game number, don't just cite that like that's a reason. It relates to what we're doing. It may have to do with the spirit of the rule. It may not have to do with the actual rule. The Laker medicals tell us, I think, everything we need to know, which we won't ever see. So something that we never see will never tell us what we don't know. But the league's the result, well, if the league lets them take Deng off, it means that they really did have a strong case medically. And then we looked at the impact on this year and how it could enable them to pay KCP probably what he's looking for, and Rondo probably what he's looking for, possibly keep Dwight and Markieff, and then still bring in a player making 9.3 without having to cut your Bradleys or your JaVales if Deng isn't there. Otherwise, someone's got to go. And as we noted, JaVale to the Blazers, at least on paper, makes a lot of sense, given they have a trade exception that would work just fine for his number, and would be an easy replacement for Hassan Whiteside. And then we looked ahead to the future and said, hey, LeBron, if you want to take a little bit less, if we knock Deng off, the money's it's less, but it's not like crazy less. I'm going to hit the chat because I think we hit everything I wanted to today. I really tremendously appreciate it. The follow-ups, hit me up on Twitter at Eric Pincus. Let me know at any point if there's something you want me to cover in a stream and all that stuff. I'm going back as far as I can remember us going. Okay, I remember Diogo. I think that's how you say it. The uncertainty principle. How many players in a year can the Lakers stretch? Or any team, and isn't the full amount? So it's 15%. The most that you can stretch is 15% of the salary cap. So that means that you look at all the players who are stretched for that season. So 2021, the cap is set, and we take 15% of that, and then you add up all the players who are stretched, and it can't equal. Well, it can equal that. It can't be more than that. Let's see here. I haven't checked the CBA FAQ in a while, so I forgot the rule. But do you know if the Lakers have Cousins non-bird rights? So the Lakers do not have Cousins non-bird rights because they waived him. However, if they sign him for 1 year, they will have early bird rights at the end of the year. So no, right now, no non-bird rights, no rights at all. But the clock will tick one notch forward to early bird. It's one of those kind of kooky rules, and something that I didn't know about. I don't know how many years ago I learned that. That was something I actually got into an argument with, a friendly argument with someone with a team, and was part of how I built a relationship with that person, because we were debating the law and the rule on that. Ends up I was wrong, but it was a good relationship builder. So I was wrong in the detail, but I was right in having the argument. They have non-bird for Dwight at least. That's true. Let's see here. For AD, change anything for AD 1+1 or 2+1. The 2+1 allows him to hit free agency when he's a 10-year vet. That's the best situation for him for maximizing his money. What he wants to do, and what his agent and what they, Rich Paul, and what they agree is right for AD is up to them. I can tell you from a math perspective, that's probably the best way for him to maximize his money. A 2+1, opt out, sign when he's a 10-year. And I think a lot of people in the industry would agree with that concept, but that doesn't mean they do that. It's up to whoever to make those decisions. How probably the league forfeits luxury tax for 2 years. Okay, so I touched on this kind of a little bit in the last stream, that the higher the tax, the higher the teams spend, the less money everybody else gets, because you're going to have to offset that with an escrow, because the amount of money that is everybody gets in everything is a pool. And there's the same amount of water in that pool. That's the revenue. And their pool, the players' pool, is half of what roughly the league brought in. So if the teams are spending more, the amount of water is the same. So the money has to be pulled back somehow. That's done through the escrow system. Now, there could be a delayed escrow. There could be the union trying to get the league to eat some money instead of the players. I don't think the league goes for that. So my assumption is that however high the cap goes, however high the luxury tax goes, which allows more teams to spend, per the last stream in detail, check that out, the less that everybody makes, because their escrow, instead of normal escrow is 10%. This year they raised it to 25% because of the situation. If next year's is 30 or 40, and if you get rid of the tax, maybe you have to push it to 45. Or if there's all kinds of detail here that I covered it in some level of depth the last stream. 3 years for bird rights, yes. 2 years for early bird, 1 for non-bird. Thank you, Vincent. I know Larry does Spectrum, so I'm not stepping on Larry's toes. Let's see, Jeffrey. Yep, correct. Let's see. How probable the league waives luxury tax? I said that. Yeah, right. Again, same issue. Non-bird is 120. Early bird is 175% of the previous salary, or it's the early bird amount, which is basically more or less the league average plus about 5%. I feel like people think that Deng won't get his money. No, Deng's getting his money. Period. That has nothing to do with it. Let's see. Thank you, Dean, for coming. Trading the pick seems likely. Yeah, I didn't even talk about the Lakers pick in the math. We would have to plug in the $2 million, but you can see how forgettable it is. All my math changes with that first round pick slightly, so I'm just going to copy that. It's a good point. That is the one little tidbit I left out. And that's right here. We'll go to the bottom here. So all numbers above need to account for this player as well, provided that player joins the team for the 2020-21 season. Okay, so I didn't take that into account because that was not really the scope of what we're doing. All right, let me see if there's anything else, and we're almost done here. Trading. Yeah, the Lakers can extend LeBron. Sure. They would be limited to the max, but I think the issue, Wagner, is in the language of the over 38 rule, and maybe we'll stream on that to kind of dig into it. I believe you have to be a free agent to take advantage of the 4 years. Like LeBron would be eligible for a 4-year new contract if he opts out, but I think there would be an issue if he opted in and took a 3-year extension, same number of years. And so I don't want to answer that definitively, and we'll have to do a stream on that to dig into the over 38. Can AD and LeBron opt out and do Heat? Yeah, no, of course. They can. Obviously, AD can opt out and will opt out this year, and he can sign for less. He could sign for max now and have it descend a little. He can sign for below max and have it descend. Whatever. LeBron can. They could all do that. It's up to them. So, do I think they'll do it? No. I think they'll get their money and they deserve it. And they brought championships to the Lakers. The Lakers have to figure out how to make it work without shorting their players. I respect that. If they want to do it, that's up to them. All right. Would the Lakers? AD gave up a trade bonus, right? So he gave up money that he wouldn't have had if he didn't demand a trade. So yeah, he gave up money that the Pelicans would say he never should have had. Would the Lakers? Yeah, an option. Yeah, you treat, if someone opts out of their contract, you don't lose their rights. If someone is non-guaranteed, like if they waive Cook, they would lose his rights. And taking advantage of his non-guarantee. But if if Rondo opts out, they don't lose their option. Say it again. If Rondo opts out, they don't lose his early bird rights. If KCP opts out, don't lose his full. Don't lose LeBron's when he opts out, if and when. You're welcome for answering the questions. I think we're almost at the end here. Early bird means you can go up to $10 million over the cap, or does that it's $10 million in salary. It's a set number. It's a number that adjusts every year. I'll copy that in real quick. It's based on the average salary, and then which is a whole nother formula in and of itself. I know how to calculate it. I don't have everything I need to get an exact number, but I have an estimate to be about 10 million, 10.1. So this is early bird. This was given out by the NBA on June 29th, I think, or 30th. I have to look at the date. So this is a player would be able to do 1.75 of their previous salary, or the early bird number, the greater of the two. And so, like KCP, I guess Rondo's a better example, right? Rondo could go up to 9.6 because 175% isn't anywhere close to this number. All right. Hope to see you, and thank you. Appreciate that Lake Show. And that's it. All right. So thank you, folks. We're going to wrap up the stream. We'll do it again. Do me a favor, share this to people, spread it around. If we can get enough of a community going and enough interest, I'll do it more than once a week. I mean, I'm open to doing it 3 times a week. I'll throw it out there. It's a commitment of time for me, and it's a commitment of time for you, the folks who are so cool. to take your time and listen. I'm having fun, and if I'm sharing knowledge, we can deal with news as it breaks. We can go team by team and do just team summaries for the off-season preparation. But I just need to know that people are into it, and if we get enough people involved, I'm trying to get to a certain number of hours of viewership so that I can monetize this. I haven't reached that point yet, just getting started. So if I get 4,000 hours, then that's even better for me. So if you can spread the word and help, and then in the meantime, of course, there's Venmo, there's Patreon. That would be super awesome. Help, support the channel, support my time. And if you don't have the money, please don't even consider that. But if you do have a little bit extra money, a few bucks, be great. All right, folks, thank you so much. Let's see if I can figure out how to end this thing. I'm still new at this. So if I don't do it right, I will not do a tubing. All right, guys, talk to you later.